The clock strikes midnight, but your mind is just getting started. You close your eyes, ready to sleep, but the movie begins. Suddenly, you are winning an argument you lost 3 years ago. You deliver the perfect comeback, and the room erupts in applause. Then, the scene shifts to a tragedy where you are the hero. You are saving lives, receiving awards, and finally getting the credit. Perhaps you drift into a romantic fantasy with someone who doesn't exist. It feels real, vivid, and entirely under your control. We have all been there, lying in the dark, wide awake. But why do we waste our precious sleep acting out lies? This isn't just random daydreaming or simple insomnia. It is a specific psychological phenomenon known as revenge bedtime procrastination. The term originated from a Chinese expression describing workers reclaiming their lost time. We spend our days obeying bosses, teachers, and societal expectations. By 11 p.m., we are desperate to regain control of our lives. Sleeping feels like giving up, so we stay awake to live. We stay up to script the life we wished we had lived. These late-night fantasies are our revenge against a busy, demanding world. However, there is a deeper cognitive hook keeping us engaged. Why does the brain loop on specific interactions from the day? You aren't just imagining things, your brain is trying to finish business. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik Effect, named after Bluma Zeigarnik. She observed that waiters remembered complex orders only until the food was served. Once the task was complete, the memory was instantly wiped away. Your brain holds on to open loops of unfinished tasks or conversations. That awkward email you sent today is an open loop. That argument you walked away from is an open loop. Your mind refuses to let you sleep until these loops are closed. So you create a fantasy resolution to satisfy the cognitive tension. You replay the argument, but this time you win decisively. The brain finally marks the interaction as resolved and releases dopamine. It feels satisfying, but it is a trap of your own making. The resolution is fake, so the loop never truly closes. You are caught in a cycle of emotional procrastination. We believe we are processing emotions, but we are actually avoiding them. We substitute reality with a polished, safer version of the truth. This midnight theater is a coping mechanism for the anxious mind. But when the script takes a dark turn, the real nightmare begins. Let's dive deeper into the darker side of these nightly stories. To understand this midnight theater, we must look back thousands of years. Our ancestors faced genuine life-threatening dangers the moment darkness fell. For early humans, closing your eyes meant becoming vulnerable to predators. Evolution favored those who could simulate threats safely within their own minds. This is the revolutionary threat simulation theory proposed by modern scientists. The brain began using sleep to run survival drills without actual physical risk. Imagine a primitive hunter mentally rehearsing escape from a lurking saber-toothed tiger. These nightly simulations served as a virtual reality training ground for survival. Those who practiced fighting in their heads survived real fights more often. We are effectively the descendants of the most vivid and paranoid dreamers. Today, the saber-toothed tiger is gone, but the neural software remains fully active. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a looming deadline and a hungry predator. It simulates arguments with your boss as if they were life-or-death tribal conflicts. This explains why the content of our thoughts often feels so terrifyingly dramatic. However, there was a specific role for the individual who stayed awake while others slept. Anthropologists refer to this crucial evolutionary role as the sentinel hypothesis. In tribal groups, one person had to remain hyper-vigilant while the rest rested. This sentinel bore the heavy burden of watching for threats while the tribe dreamed. Today, the anxious mind acts as a sentinel that refuses to stand down. When your body wants to shut down, your brain insists on keeping watch. You lie in bed scanning for danger, just as a sentinel scanned the horizon. But now, the horizon is your own mind, and the threats are hypothetical. This biological impulse keeps you hyper-alert when you desperately need rest. Yet, the human fascination with guiding these visions goes back even further than evolution. In ancient Greece, people flocked to incubation temples to invite divine dreams. They believed that sleeping in sacred spaces could cure ailments of the soul. These weren't seen as random thoughts, but as powerful messages from the gods. Historical records show societies revered these nightly visions as prophetic tools. In contrast, modern psychology views this same phenomenon as a cognitive quirk. We have shifted from divine prophecy to clinical analysis of neural firing. Yet, the intense emotional weight we assign to these scenarios remains unchanged. We treat our imagined arguments with the same seriousness ancient seers treated omens. This historical context reveals that we have always been nocturnal storytellers. The medium has changed, but the fundamental drive to simulate reality persists. Evolution gave us the hardware, but our environment dictates the software. We are running ancient survival programs on a modern, stress-filled operating system. The sentinel inside you is trying to protect you from a world that no longer exists. But this protective mechanism can easily transform into a prison of endless worry. Understanding the origins is one thing, but controlling the outcome is another battle entirely. To understand the sentinel, we must look directly inside the machinery of the brain. Neuroscience has given us a map to the exact circuitry behind your midnight stories. When you lie down, your brain switches operational modes like a computer changing programs. During the day, you rely heavily on the task-positive network to navigate reality. This network lights up when you are focused, solving problems, and engaging with the world. But the moment the lights go out, the switch flips to a different system. Enter the default mode network, the architect of your nightly mental theater. The DMN activates precisely when you stop paying attention to the outside world. It is the neurological home of self-reflection, memory, and vivid imagination. Visualize the DMN as a cluster of distinct regions firing in perfect synchronization. Like a precision engine, these parts work together to construct detailed internal narratives. You aren't just imagining things, you are running a complex biological simulation. This network recruits the hippocampus to act as your internal reality simulator. The hippocampus pulls from your memory banks to build realistic backdrops for your scenarios. It constructs the stage, the setting, and the characters with stunning high-definition clarity. But a stage is nothing without drama, which is where the amygdala steps in. The amygdala acts as the emotional director, injecting high stakes into every scene. It flags these imagined moments as urgent, flooding your system with adrenaline and cortisol. This collaboration creates a powerful loop where memory meets raw, visceral emotion. Your brain does not distinguish between a real threat and a vividly imagined one. To your neural pathways, that fake argument feels as real as any physical danger. This hyperrealism explains why you cannot simply turn off these thoughts at will. However, the simulation is only half of the story behind your nightly habit. There is a chemical reward system that keeps you coming back for more. Your brain releases dopamine whenever you resolve one of these simulated conflicts. It tricks you into feeling a sense of accomplishment without taking any real-world action. Winning a fake argument provides a tiny addictive hit of satisfaction and control. It feels like you have solved a problem, even though the problem never existed. This dopamine hit reinforces the behavior, making the habit harder to break. You are essentially self-medicating with synthetic victories to soothe daily anxiety. But this false sense of resolution comes with a heavy biological price tag. The constant emotional spikes keep your nervous system on high alert all night. Your brain remains stuck in overdrive, burning energy it should be conserving. The more you simulate, the more you drain the resources needed for actual rest. You are trading tomorrow's energy for tonight's fleeting sense of control. The engine keeps running, burning fuel on a journey that goes absolutely nowhere. Recognizing this loop is the first step toward finally hitting the brakes. But breaking the cycle requires understanding what happens when the engine overheats. The consequences of this nightly burnout extend far beyond simple exhaustion. Sometimes the theater doesn't close, it consumes you. This is the dark territory of maladaptive daydreaming. It is distinct from normal imagination by one metric: distress. Normal scenarios lull you to sleep, these trap you awake. You stop watching the movie and start living inside it. For some, the fantasy world becomes brighter than reality. The line between healthy processing and dangerous escape blurs. Psychologists call this the emotional avoidance trap. We script perfect endings because real life lacks them. It feels safer to imagine a resolution than to grieve. But grief deferred is simply trauma waiting in the wings. Your brain files the event as unfinished business indefinitely. The loop tightens, demanding more energy to sustain the illusion. You wake up exhausted, having processed absolutely nothing real. To escape, we must learn to shut down the theater manually. First, try the counterintuitive art of cognitive shuffling. Imagine a random word, then visualize items starting with each letter. Tiger leads to toast, then tent, then turtle. This scrambles the narrative logic your brain relies on. It forces the engine to misfire, breaking the story's momentum. Without a plot, the anxiety has nowhere to latch. For persistent thoughts, use a technique called thought parking. Keep a notepad by your bed to physically write down the worry. Tell your brain, we will handle this tomorrow at 10 a.m. You are outsourcing the memory to paper, freeing your mind. This externalizes the loop, proving you don't need to hold it. Reclaiming your sleep means reclaiming your reality. The midnight theater is a tool, not a master. It should serve as a lullaby, not a life sentence. When the lights go out, you must choose to let them. Bravery isn't fighting imaginary dragons, it's facing the quiet dark. Real rest requires the courage to stop performing for an audience of one. The script was never the point, the silence was. Tonight, try to exist without a narrative. Let the silence do the heavy lifting for once. Your dreams are waiting for you on the other side of the curtain. Drop the script. Close your eyes. And finally, just sleep. Thank you for watching.